College football is going to be here before we know it. We got SEC Media Days this week. This conference is going to be awesome. So much talent. Georgia, obviously the favorite at plus 200. Texas, new member of the league, along with Oklahoma. The Longhorns are plus 300. Then you got Ole Miss at 6-1, Bama at plus 750, LSU plus 900, Missouri, Tennessee, and A&M all at 12-1. So when you look at the SEC, I guess I'll ask you right off the bat, like, would you take Georgia or would you take the field in the SEC?
I'd probably take the field, just because like the SEC is always loaded. Like there's so many teams, and now with Texas and Oklahoma coming over, I'm hoping at some point Oklahoma knows you have to play defense in the SEC. But Texas is loaded, man. Like they're coming back. It's one of the best defenses in the country last year. I know Michigan's probably a little bit better off, but this Texas team, anything happens to Ewers, you still got Arch, and again, like I want to go against because they're going to the SEC. But Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M kind of shocked us all when they went to the SEC and actually played a pretty good brand of football where I thought they were just going to get destroyed.
They did, but how do you feel about Quinn Ewers? Are you a Quinn Ewers guy? Because I think a lot of people this season, how you feel about Texas is how you feel about Ewers. And obviously, he could be a top 10 pick in the draft this year. I'm not big on him, though. Are you big on him?
I like him, but I'm more of I'll just say it. I've already said I'm a Manning guy, so I want to see Arch. I want to see how he plays. Like that whole family is just, they were all like coming through in the SEC. They all dominated. So it would be interesting now that Texas is in the SEC to see what Arch does.
Texas's schedule is interesting, and it will be interesting to see what Arch does. And obviously, I think he's in a great spot. I think Sark's the best offensive play caller in college football, and all those weapons that he has is going to be really good. Texas, though, on the road, week 2, they play at Michigan. I think that's a great game for them just because of all the turnover that Michigan's going to have this year. No more Jim Harbaugh, no J.J. McCarthy. Even though you're home, like, remember, Texas went on the road last year in week 2 and won at Tuscaloosa. So they know that they can go on the road in a hostile environment and win against a good opponent. The fact that they play in Ann Arbor in September, too, and they don't have to travel there in, like, November, where they could be dealing with elements and stuff, I think that's a big thing. Plus, that's also the Fox noon kickoff, which anytime you're playing a big game, Jeremy, on the road, and you can go on the road, just night games, as we know, are tougher places to play than day games. So I think that's going to be a big advantage for Texas as well. So I like them in that game. Then they got, of course, the Red River Shootout against Oklahoma, which is always tough. Home against Georgia, and then they end the year at Texas A&M, which will be a good one. So Texas's win total is sitting at 10. I kind of think that's like I think that's their probably as low as they go. I mean, again, the Georgia and A&M games are going to be tough. I think people will look at the Michigan game as being tough. I think they're going to win that one. I think they probably split with Georgia and A&M. If this was 10.5, I'd probably stay away, but I think getting the win total at the 10, I think the over would probably be the play with me for Texas. Don't like them to win the SEC, and I'm not a Ewers guy. I think just the way that their schedule sets up for them, I think they could have a pretty good year. We have Alabama at plus 750. Jeremy, I want to hear your thoughts on the Tide before I get into mine, because you were saying earlier that you think Bama might have a fall off, which is probably expected without Nick Saban this season.
Yeah, look, I think the world of Nick Saban. That guy is one of the more amazing coaches we've had. Probably one of the best, college coaches we've ever seen. And don't forget, he's been in the NFL. He's done a lot of stuff there. And God forbid if they hadn't said goodbye to Drew Brees and not signed him because of the shoulder injury, who knows what could have been in Miami. But this team is, look, they've got talent. But we don't know what's going to happen with new coach coming in, how that's going to look, how it's going to react in the SEC. I think the fall off from a guy like Nick Saban, I think that's huge because he's meant so much to those guys in Alabama, PJ.
He has. And Jeremy, the thing that I've been saying about Bama this year, or this upcoming season, which I think we take for granted with Saban, is exactly what you were just talking about with your point about LSU and like Bowling Green. And the games when Saban was in Tuscaloosa, all the games that people, when they would look at their schedule and they would project what Bama's record would be, all those games where they were double-digit favorites, games that on paper you thought they should win, they would always win those games. And that's why we love college football, is because of the upsets, the rivalries, the games that shake up everything at the end of the season. And Bama was usually never a part of those games. So this year, when you look at their schedule and you go through it, right? And there are games like that game early on in the year, like at Wisconsin, or the game at home against Missouri, games where Saban would be there, you would say to yourself, you know what, Bama's not going to lose that game. Like the game against Georgia at home, the game at LSU, like those could be the games. But that Wisconsin game, Missouri game, like some of these other spots, no problem. Now I think with Kellen DeBoer, like we have to remember Washington last year played 9 straight games where it was decided by double digits. Now they went undefeated in all those games, but that was a one-off. That was a magical season. Like that won't happen again for Kellen DeBoer. So to me, Jeremy, that's just going to be the biggest adjustment with Bama and how we view them. And I think that is just what was part of Nick Saban's greatness, is he won those games. I mean, he dropped some here and there, but very rarely. He just usually would always win those games that we always expected Bama to win.
Yeah, look, he always had talent, but I also feel like when he didn't have quite the talent that other teams had, like last year, to me, that's a coaching job that he kind of put together. And I'm kind of curious of what DeBoer wants to do with like the quarterback situation in Alabama. Devise an offense around what you have there now, looking at which direction you're going to go in, knowing that, that was more of a pass-happy offense in Washington. I'm kind of curious to see what it looks like this year in the SEC. But he's got big shoes to fill, and it's going to be tough. Like when you look at the rest of the SEC too, I mean, these power conferences we have, people are going to have to get used to seeing some of those Pac-12 teams that have now gone to the Big Ten. Some of the Big 12 teams that we now see in the SEC. It's going to be weird. The one thing I think gamblers need to pay attention to is when those West Coast teams come east. It's so different for a team. If UCLA has to play a noon game, that's such a tough spot to be in for a West Coast team. Your body clock is on 9 a.m. your time. I've seen it happen where bad teams beat good teams all the time because they come in just tired.
Especially, Jeremy, if it's a 9 a.m. local kick and it's in Northwestern or something like that, or it's in Bloomington, Indiana. They got to play a cold weather game. So I totally agree with you. That's going to be something interesting to monitor. And, the SEC, can't wait for it. Georgia, I think, is the best team in college football. I like them to win the SEC, but I'm interested to see kind of after Georgia, like who's the team that emerges this year in that league. Going to be fun to watch.